When Karen banned my nephew from the community pool, I didn't even know her name. 6 months later, I knew her bank account numbers and her entire corruption history. That transformation from clueless neighbor to forensic investigator happened because Karen Mitchell made one critical mistake. She picked a fight with a retired construction lawyer who'd spent 20 years unraveling fraud schemes and had absolutely nothing left to lose. 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I'm standing in my doorway in my bathrobe, steam rising from my coffee mug, facing 2 very confused police officers and 1 very smug woman in tennis whites. What would you do if your HOA Karen tried to weaponize the police against you? My name is Dave Martinez, and 8 months ago I thought I was moving to paradise. Willowbrook Estates, 127 pristine homes with a $400,000 community pool that sparkled like a jewel in the morning sun. I paid premium for the corner lot with the pool view. $750 when comparable houses were going for $650. Worth every penny, I thought. Especially after watching my wife Sarah battle cancer for 3 years. She died last October. The house we'd shared for 22 years felt like a museum of memories, so I packed up and moved to Willowbrook to start fresh. Retired from construction law after 2 decades of fighting contractor fraud. Figured I'd earn some peace and quiet. That's when I first noticed her. Karen Mitchell, 48, real estate agent, HOA vice president, and owner of the model home. Always in designer athleisure, blonde highlights perfectly maintained, carrying that damn binder everywhere like she was running a Fortune 500 company instead of a suburban homeowners association. She was married to City Councilman Brad Mitchell, which meant she knew all the right people and never let anyone forget it. The trouble started on a Tuesday in June. My nephew Miguel was visiting, 16 years old, smart as a whip, heading to engineering school in the fall. He'd invited 2 friends from his summer job over for a pool day. Nice kids, polite, the kind who actually say thank you without being prompted. We're talking maybe 90 minutes of teenage laughter and the occasional splash. That's when Karen appeared poolside with her clipboard like some kind of HOA Grim Reaper. "Excuse me," she announced loud enough for the entire pool area to hear, "I need to see guest passes for these young men." Guest passes? I'd been living there 8 months and never heard of guest passes. "Their family," I explained, keeping my voice level. "This is Miguel, my nephew, and these are his friends from work." Karen's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Rules are rules, Mr. Martinez. HOA bylaws clearly state that excessive guest usage, that's more than 2 guests per household per week, requires pre-registration and approved guest passes." I offered to register the boys as extended visitors. Seemed reasonable enough. But Karen wasn't interested in reasonable. "No exceptions," she declared. "Pool privileges are immediately suspended for Lot 47 pending compliance review." The creak of pool chairs as other residents suddenly found their phones fascinating. Nobody wanted to be Karen's next target. Miguel and his friends quietly gathered their towels, embarrassed and confused. That night, sitting in my kitchen, I realized this wasn't about pool rules. This was about power, control, and putting the newcomer in his place. Karen had just made her first mistake. She'd picked a fight with someone who'd spent 20 years dealing with bullies who hid behind contracts and fine print. Karen didn't waste time escalating. 3 days later, I found a certified letter in my mailbox scheduling a compliance hearing with exactly 48 hours notice. The hearing was set for Thursday at 7 p.m. Thursday was Sarah's birthday. The letter cited multiple violations I'd apparently missed. Trash cans visible from the street, they weren't. Lawn height exceeding 3.5 inches, I'd measured it myself at 3.2. And my personal favorite, failure to maintain community harmony through appropriate guest management. That night, I did what any good lawyer does when facing a hostile opponent. I read the fine print. Every page of the HOA documents I'd signed at closing, plus the original community charter. 20 years of construction law teaches you that the devil's always in the details. Buried on page 47 of the charter, I found gold. Reasonable accommodation shall be provided for family gatherings and multi-generational household activities. Karen's guest policy directly violated the foundational document she claimed to be enforcing. Thursday evening, I walked into Karen's dining room, because apparently we were holding official HOA business in her personal residence, carrying a manila folder with every relevant document highlighted and tabbed. When Karen finished her PowerPoint presentation about maintaining community standards, I quietly stood up and began laying out documents. "Before we proceed," I said, I'd like to point out several procedural violations in tonight's hearing. First, HOA business cannot be conducted in a board member's private residence without prior community notice. Karen's face flushed. Instead of acknowledging the procedural issues, she pivoted to personal attack. Maybe Mr. Martinez is having trouble adjusting to community life after his recent loss. Perhaps the stress of learning new rules is overwhelming. The room went dead quiet. She'd just revealed her true colors, and the board had seen exactly what they were dealing with. That night, I opened my laptop and began the kind of deep research I hadn't done since my last major construction fraud case. HOA formation documents, municipal filings, Karen's real estate transaction history, everything was public record if you knew where to look. By 2 a.m. I'd found the first thread. Karen Mitchell Realty had been the exclusive sales agent during Willowbrook's construction phase. Exclusive arrangements like that usually came with incentives. Time to see exactly what those incentives had been. Within a week, Karen organized what she called a neighborhood watch patrol. 3 residents with clipboards and cameras documenting every minor deviation from HOA rules. But I was getting special attention. Daily drive-bys, photographs of my property from multiple angles, warnings left under windshield wipers. That's when Maria Santos, our HOA treasurer, approached me after one of my morning walks. "Dave," she said quietly, glancing around like we were planning a heist. "We need to talk. There are things about this HOA's finances that don't add up." The smoking gun was hiding in plain sight, buried in a stack of emails Maria had been quietly saving for 3 years. The original HOA budget showed $2,100,000 allocated for community amenities, pool, landscaping, community center, playground. But the actual construction invoices showed costs of only $1,400,000. $700,000. Gone. Karen Mitchell Realty had received referral bonuses and sales incentives that were 400% above normal real estate commission rates. But the real smoking gun was an email where she explicitly discussed profit-sharing arrangements with the developer for inflated amenity budgets. This wasn't just about pool access anymore. This was systematic financial fraud that had been bleeding our community dry for 3 years. Every resident had overpaid for substandard amenities, and we were continuing to overpay through inflated HOA dues designed to cover the missing money. The monthly landscaping contract, the pool maintenance, even the snow removal service for a Texas community that averages 1 snow day per decade, they were all overpriced by 30 to 40%, and Karen got kickbacks from every vendor. Karen's desperation became visible the moment our public records request hit her desk. Within 48 hours, she'd called an emergency board meeting to propose disruptive resident removal procedures, with me as the obvious target. Her character assassination campaign spread like wildfire. Fake Facebook posts claiming I was planning to sue individual residents. Whisper campaigns about my unstable mental state following Sarah's death. She actually suggested that my grief had made me paranoid and vindictive. But Karen's masterstroke was filing a formal complaint with city code enforcement alleging multiple violations at my property. The inspection was scheduled for Friday. Friday was Miguel's graduation party. At 2 p.m., just as Miguel was cutting his graduation cake, a city code enforcement truck pulled into my driveway. Behind it, Karen's car. She'd come to watch the show. The inspector spent 2 hours checking electrical outlets, measuring room dimensions, examining plumbing fixtures. Miguel pulled out his phone and started live streaming the entire inspection. "Guys, you're not going to believe this," he narrated to his followers. "Some lady called code enforcement on my uncle's graduation party." The moment of truth came when the inspector finished. "No violations. 0. This property is in perfect compliance." Karen publicly argued with the inspector. "You need to look harder," she insisted, her voice rising. "There have to be violations." The live stream captured everything. Karen's increasingly unhinged behavior went viral. Miguel's comment section exploded with viewers sharing their own HOA horror stories. But here's what Karen didn't know. During the inspection, my construction-trained eye had noticed something. The original architectural plans showed significant discrepancies with the community amenities. The pool installation specs didn't match what was actually built. That night, after the celebration, Maria approached me with another document dump. What I found made my blood run cold. We now had email admissions of profit sharing, bank records showing suspicious deposits, construction invoices proving cost inflation, a 3-year pattern of financial irregularities totaling over $700,000. Building a criminal fraud case requires 3 things: evidence, allies, and patience. Our strategy was multi-pronged. Criminal referral to the district attorney's office. Civil action to recover stolen funds. And most importantly, community education so residents understood their rights. We filed formal public records requests for all HOA financial documents, completely legal, entirely within our rights. Karen would have to either comply, giving us official documentation of the fraud, or obstruct, adding criminal charges to her growing legal problems. Karen chose obstruction. She attempted to freeze HOA accounts. She called for emergency votes of no confidence against board members who supported transparency. Her goal was to install a compliant board before the criminal investigation could proceed. That's when she made her final mistake. Karen cornered me in a parking lot after a board meeting. What she didn't know was that my phone was still recording. "Look, Dave," she said, voice dripping with fake concern. "The HOA budget has some flexibility. We could arrange for your pool maintenance to be covered if you could just drop these complaints." Attempted bribery on tape. "If you don't back off, you'll regret it," she continued. "My husband has friends in city government who don't appreciate residents who waste municipal resources." Threats also on tape. The next morning, Karen filed a false police report claiming I had threatened her. She timed the complaint perfectly, 6 a.m., ensuring maximum neighborhood visibility when patrol cars arrived. When the officers showed up at my door, I was ready with my phone and the recording of our actual conversation. They listened with expressions that shifted from skepticism to disbelief to barely contained anger. "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez told Karen, "filing false reports is a criminal offense." But Karen was beyond rational thought. She launched into full scorched earth mode, filing complaints with the city attorney's office and attempting to freeze HOA financial records. While she was busy with damage control, I filed a comprehensive criminal complaint with the district attorney's office. The DA's white-collar crime unit assigned a detective within 48 hours. Subpoenas for all HOA financial records, developer contracts, and Karen's personal banking information going back 5 years. The mandatory community meeting was scheduled for Saturday morning. Willowbrook Elementary School gymnasium was packed. 89 of our 127 households showed up, along with local news, the detective, Karen's criminal defense attorney, and enough social media live streams to crash the school's Wi-Fi. I connected my laptop to the projector system. 20 years of courtroom presentations had taught me that visual evidence trumps emotional appeals every time. The first slide showed our community's original construction budget, $2,100,000 for amenities. The second slide showed actual construction costs, $1,400,000. The difference, $700,000, appeared in red. "This represents money our community paid for amenities we never received," I explained. "That's almost $6,000 per household that vanished." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The next slides documented the ongoing overcharges. Pool maintenance contracts 40% above market rate. Landscaping services costing triple comparable providers. But the smoking gun was the email evidence displayed on screen in 24-point font. Karen's own words, profit-sharing arrangements for inflated amenity budgets. You could hear a pin drop. Against her attorney's frantic head shaking, Karen stood up. "Those emails are taken out of context," she shouted. "If Dave Martinez wasn't so obsessed with destroying me because I enforced pool rules against his nephew, none of this would be an issue." She just admitted to targeting Miguel while simultaneously confirming the financial irregularities. The detective chose that moment to address the crowd. "The district attorney's office has filed criminal charges including fraud, embezzlement, mail fraud, and conspiracy." The community response was overwhelming. Resident after resident stood to share their own stories of Karen's harassment. The standing ovation when I finished our presentation lasted nearly 5 minutes. 6 months later, justice had beautiful symmetry. Karen Mitchell pled guilty to federal fraud charges. The final tally, $847,000 in stolen funds, plus interest and legal fees. Her real estate license was permanently revoked. Her husband quietly resigned from city council when his own involvement came to light. But the real victory was what we built from the ashes. Our new HOA bylaws require transparent financial reporting, resident oversight committees, and independent audits. The recovered funds eliminated HOA dues for 3 years and funded actual improvements: playground upgrades, walking trails, a community garden. The remaining money established the Sarah Martinez Memorial Scholarship for local students pursuing engineering degrees. Miguel was the first recipient, and watching him accept that award reminded me why fighting for justice matters. Our story spread beyond Willowbrook. State legislators cited our experience while drafting HOA reform bills. I started receiving calls from other communities experiencing similar corruption, and helping them felt like the best possible use of my retirement. Last month, we held our first annual community pool party honoring Sarah's memory. Miguel visited from engineering school. "Uncle Dave," he said as we watched neighbors laughing together, "Aunt Sarah would be proud of what you built here." He was right. We built a community based on fairness, transparency, and mutual respect rather than fear and control. Remember, you have more power than corrupt officials want you to know. Document everything, research your rights, and don't let anyone bully you out of transparency.